Welcome to Talking Ship, the Venture Asheville podcast, where we talk about issues and topics in entrepreneurship. If you're looking for a podcast on schooners, frigates, catamarans, dinghies, pontoons, or runabouts, you are in the wrong place. If you want to talk about startups, tech, Asheville, and entrepreneurship, well, that's my kind of ship. Venture Asheville is the high-growth entrepreneurship initiative of the Economic Development Coalition for Asheville-Buncombe County. We build entrepreneurs and get startups funded. I'm Jeffrey Kaplan, the director of Venture Asheville and lover of Mazda Miatas. With me is the wonderful, smart, talented, considerate, and creative Juliana Walker, our master of interactive media. Juliana, what's good?
It's going all right. I'm having a good day. So far, so good. It's hot outside, but it's gonna cool down eventually, I hope.
This is our third recording, and our banter has really improved.
It has improved.
I think the audiences can sense the warmth between us.
I can't stop talking about the weather, though.
Well, we're recording this on a Monday. Did I ever tell you about Fun Day Monday in college?
I don't know if you ever did.
So I wasn't until after college I learned about Sunday Fun Day, which is where people day drink and have extended brunches. When I was in college, we had a thing called Fun Day Monday because we worked the late shift at Pita Pit. Pita Pit was that sandwich place, and there was a lot of them, but this one's next to the Swamp and a bunch of bars in Gainesville, Florida. And to keep us motivated, our boss, Jesse at the time, Monday nights, had a really fun shift, lots of music and a little bit of beer, called Fun Day Monday. Speaking of colleges, we have two Ash famous guests with us today. Kevan Frazier, the Executive Director of Western Carolina University's programs in Asheville, and Dr. Susan Clark, Associate Professor of Management at UNCA. Before we bring them in, I want to explain why we asked these Ash famous educators to be with us today. Colleges and universities play an incredibly important role in ecosystems as talent pipelines, incubators of ideas, places of experimentation. Oh, speaking of, Juliana, did you want to mention any experimentation you did in college?
Please, no.
Not in this podcast. Got it?
Not this.
Understood. And these universities also provide resources for students, staff, faculty, and the community. In that spirit, we've asked Susan and Kevan to share with us how the universities here are developing entrepreneurial talent and how our startups can get involved with the universities. So who wants to kick it off? Please, one of you, tell us a little bit, welcome, say hi, and tell us a bit about your respective universities.
Hey there. So UNC Asheville is the University of North Carolina's undergraduate liberal arts university. And so I only have undergraduates, and they're primarily traditional, right out of high school undergraduates. And my entrepreneurship students are amazing. And one thing we do, I think, really well is try to connect those students with the entrepreneurial community. As part of my entrepreneurship class, I require them to show up, to go to events, to pitch, to meet at least 3 people, and then they report back to the class what they experienced, what they learned, who they met. And that bridge is really the beginning of starting a relationship with these young people and the amazing entrepreneurs in our community.
That's great. So a huge focus on experiential education.
Yes.
Forcing them out of the classroom, out of their comfort zones. That's great.
Absolutely.
Very exciting. And you mentioned you get these students. You work mostly with juniors and seniors. Is that right?
Yes, it's a 300 level course. So mostly sophomores and juniors, some seniors. So they have a little bit of business classes under their belt. And they are really exposed in that class to the entrepreneurial mindset, to entrepreneurship as a process, and to meeting entrepreneurs and considering the lifestyle and envisioning where they might take it in the future.
Fantastic. Now, Kevan, that's quite different from your student body. So you can tell us a little bit about what you're doing at Western Carolina.
Sure. So Western Carolina University is Western North Carolina's regional comprehensive institution. The main campus is out in Cullowhee, about an hour west of Asheville. And altogether, we've got a little over 12,000 students between undergrads and graduates and online in both of those categories. But we also have an instructional site here in Asheville where we've got more than 800 students in doctoral, masters, and even a couple of undergrad programs. From an entrepreneurship lens, we've got a couple of programs that are in particularly relevant. One, of course, is our Master's of Business Administration, MBA degree, which we offer in its entirety here in Asheville. And then through an online program, we also, you can be anywhere, we offer a Master's in Entrepreneurship. And so folks, the entrepreneurship's a great one to start off with because the students in that program are developing their own business. They're actually doing the work to develop the business as part of their curriculum throughout their entire program. And just very much building on what Susan's talking about at UNC Asheville, we're also focused on real world experience for all of our programs. For the MBA, when they're doing capstone projects or they're even doing class projects in some of the entry level classes, they're going out in an industry and they're doing actual projects. They're not just theoreticals. They're applying their theoretical knowledge, but they're getting real world experience so that, they've got the experience of working with clients, the experience of working with vendors and contractors, and really gives them, we think, a great leg up.
So we ran a accelerator here with GrowthX Capital. We call it MXP, the Market Acceleration Program. And the first thing they say in this kind of orientation accelerator virtual course was they don't teach sales in business school. They never teach you how to talk to customers. And it sounds like you both referenced the experience your students are getting when they're in your courses. So I want to come back to coursework and what actually students have to do to remain in good standing to graduate, and we're teaching them. For the listener who doesn't know about the university landscape out here, can you tell us about your student bodies a little more? What are your students interested in? What kind of businesses are coming out of your programs, or kind of like a hall of fame that people here might know about?
So my students tend to be younger than at Western, and they're very idealistic. They care a lot. So we see a big uptake in interest in social entrepreneurship, which is enterprises that are primarily focused on a social problem or an environmental problem. So my students care very deeply about our social ills. They want to make the world a better place. They want to do well by doing good. And so it's really amazing to take them in and have them be really passionate about something that they want to change, some positive change in the world, and see how they might develop a business model that can make it happen.
Have there been any, I don't want to call them success stories, that's unfair. I don't want to put in terms of failure or success, but have your students launched businesses coming out of the program or upon graduation?
For undergraduate students of traditional undergraduate student age, it's pretty rare to actually launch a business while you're in college, but certainly many have, and some have started, shortly thereafter. And then I also get several students that want to help out their parents. So their parents, they may want to go into business with their parents, they have a family business, but most of the time, they're taking a full load and they're working a part-time job, so they're not in full launch mode. But certainly, they develop the capacity to learn what they need to do, the ability to know what they don't know, and seek mentorship and seek guidance. And then if they really want to launch, another way they can pursue that after the entrepreneurship class that I teach is to set up basically an independent study with me or with another faculty, and they can do primary market research. So they can go be doing surveys, testing out the business idea, getting modifications, getting IP. They can be doing all of that and getting credit for that coursework. So that's a way they can take it forward while they're in college to prepare for a launch.
That's phenomenal. Kevan, I know some of the folks in the Masters of Entrepreneurship program are building businesses. Like they go there to learn how to build a business. Are there any kind of folks who know in town or alumni from the program that didn't know went through the program?
Yeah, so with our programs, because they're at the master's level, the average age of the student is older, and so they're in their late 20s to early 30s. Our average age is around 30, in fact. And so most of them are working professionals when they're coming to do the degree work, or they're building their own business. And so some of the ones, I pulled up a list a little bit earlier today, everything from Akiko Construction, Nick Click Social, UsedEquipmentGuide.com, Hospitality Linen Services of Asheville, Art Organized, which is a company that manages private art collections, to folks doing YouTubing on trail hiking and other kinds of outdoor experiences. So it's folks immediately are, they're working in class on their projects and then hitting the road the moment they're finished.
Yeah, I'll shout out one of my favorite entrepreneurs in town is Terry King with Coldwell Banker King.
Oh yeah,
and she went through the MSc program, and I also went through the MSc at University of Florida. We had a residential program, and we would say that there were kind of two camps of students. You had the fifth year senior, so the senior that was graduating in 4 years and didn't know what the next step was. So me at my 1 year master's degree. And then there was those students in their late 20s, early 30s that needed the skills to build a business, which really it's more about, it's not managerial skills we're trying to learn. It's entrepreneurial skills, right? How do you get the entrepreneurial mindset? So people have this desire, but how do you, what are the experiences they need? So why send students out to meet entrepreneurs and pitch? What do they get out of that?
They get exposure. So one thing I try to do with my students is connect them with entrepreneurs. I bring a lot of entrepreneurs into the classroom, either as a panel, so it's more of a conversation, a Q&A. Students can ask questions about what it's like, having entrepreneurs tell their story. And the primary reason I bring them in is to inspire. Another thing I do is I match students with entrepreneurs. I teach a consulting practicum where I have a team of 12 of our best and brightest seniors that I match with. It tends to be an entrepreneurial firm, someone that's already established a business of selling a product or service and is taking it to the next level. And those students get a whole semester where they're working on real world projects, producing deliverables to help the business, doing market research, creating content. And this is a way they can basically shadow a successful entrepreneur and get experience with a startup, with a new venture. And that's just amazing for 20, 21-year-old to have that experience. And then when they hopefully, when they move on and want to launch their own, they've been through the process. They've seen what it takes. They know what to do. They have that experience. And many of my students have actually, if not been brought on part-time or full-time with these startups and these entrepreneurial firms. And that's actually recommended for undergraduates, that they get some work experience, get some mentorship, learn the ropes, and then launch out on their own when they have the street cred, have a little bit more experience, a little bit more confidence, maybe hopefully a little bit more money. And that's when they launch. The average launch out of undergraduates about 7 years out.
And Jeff, I have to say that I love when students do the consulting projects, because you get not only is it good for them, but it's good for the businesses, because they're getting experience. The businesses are getting a perspective from, a lot of times can be their market segment, who they're focused on, but also, frankly, as students, they do a level of deep digging that sometimes professionals don't do. They've been doing it for a number of years and like, oh yeah, I can skip through this or whatnot. I have, for my own businesses, done consultant class projects, both with our MBA program at WCU and with the senior capstone classes at UNC Asheville, and they were both fantastic.
So you talk about the expert that breezes over. There's almost that curse of knowledge and gift of ignorance there. That, as Susan said, they don't know what they don't know. And it gives them the freedom to be more curious or inquisitive than someone who's supposed to be an expert. And maybe there's safety in that. An expert can't look like they don't know something, right? You never want to be in front of your investors pitching and not have an answer. Whereas students they're there to discover and pursue knowledge. That's awesome. So I was talking about students. I know it's not your class, but the UNC used to have a Ideas to Action course. And I remember one of the winners one year was a student named Nathan Kirshner. And the business he won with, I don't remember what happened to it, but we heard from Nathan like 2 years later in the middle of the pandemic, and he started an online math tutoring business. And then he won an Asheville Impact Micro Grant, and then it brought him to Elevate, and we helped him for about a solid year to scale and grow his team. He had this kind of leveraged resource of online mentors and this pool of students and parents that were having to suddenly be math teachers at home and didn't know what they were doing. So we were able to use his online tutoring service. So, what do you think was able to help Nathan, someone who, right, this is not what they worked on in school, but the capacity and the maybe the risk tolerance to say, there's an opportunity here, I'm gonna go for it.
Well, that's why I have all my students come up with a business idea and do their homework and create the pitch deck and pitch and verify the business model, get feedback on it. Because once they've been through that process, they know the process and they know what to do. And so, again, if it's 7 years out, 17 years out, 7 months out, they just go through that similar process and go ask for mentorship, ask for help. They've already made connections in the entrepreneurial community. They know the resources in our ecosystem. And so they know what to do and they have that support and they have that confidence.
And you have the consulting course, and I know that at Western Carolina, Ed Wright teaches the capstone course in the Cullowhee campus, where it's not as much consulting, but it's more research focused on the venture. Is that right?
Right.
Is that enough experience for a student, you think, to go from, is that all you take to inspire them to turn that light bulb on where they dig in enough? Is this like the opportunity corridor where just in the pursuit of opportunity, doing research, they themselves start recognizing opportunities in the market to take advantage of?
I think so. I think once they start to do a little bit of digging for other business, they're surprised what they come across. And the other great thing about both of the programs at the undergraduate, graduate levels is our students at UNC Asheville and WCU, as part of this, oftentimes interact then with all of our small business support services that we have here in Asheville, which are amazing. They're legend. I mean, they're so copious as to the number of support. With us at WCU, we of course do a lot with the Small Business Technology Development Center, Sandra Dennison and her team. But Sandra's also has a team presence on the Cullowhee campus and on the UNC Asheville campus as well. And then of course, then Mountain BizWorks and the Small Business Center at AB Tech and SCORE and SBA, and the list goes on. That's also great for our students to be able to make those contacts, because it begins to help them learn how to navigate that when they start putting their own entrepreneurial enterprise together.
So that looks at it, not that I meant to say this way, as a one-way pipeline, right? That students get exposure, and then when they're ready to start, they know the field already. But it's got to flow the other way too, right? So other than these two courses, the capstone course, the consulting course, how else do you engage with the community, business owners or people in business, or and I bring entrepreneurs into the classroom, but would you ever bring someone like Mountain BizWorks into the classroom?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we bring folks like that in all the time, because we want them to get to know these small business support entities. And it's one of those things that I always think about when we bring middle school students to college. Part of the reason we do that is so they know college exists, right? Because if it's never in their frame of reference, it's hard for them to know what's available. And it's the same thing here in business. While the three of us may have lots of interaction with all these folks in town or state entities, our students haven't necessarily at that point. And so it's our role to make sure they know.
Do either of your schools have an entrepreneurship club?
We do.
You guys do? Yeah, we had one at Florida that we rebranded as the E Club. And it was for students of every major, right? Every college that were interested in wanting to start their own business, as a place to find people like you, hopefully find a co-founder, find people to tinker and bricolage with. Susan, what are some unexpected ways that you've worked with people in the community in your classrooms, or ways for maybe if I'm a founder listening in, ways to reach out to get involved?
Yes, there are many ways to get involved, from low-level commitment to much more higher levels of commitment. The first is just talk to the professor, any professor on campus, and ask to come tell your story. Students love to hear entrepreneurs tell their story, including their failures, and it just normalizes that it's okay to be scared. It's okay to take risks. It's okay to fail and to learn from failure. And so that from a first person telling their story in a very authentic way, it gives students confidence. And I've also had panels of entrepreneurs, and that's very conversational. It's more of a Q&A format, and they get to network with the panelists that I have into the classroom. Also, entrepreneurs, any professional business business people out there, that if you have a master's degree or higher, you can teach a class. So we have several people in the business community adjuncting in our Department of Management and Accountancy, and then you get a whole semester. And some classes can be offered in the evening if you have a day job, and that's a great way to connect with students and to share your expertise. And all the way up to the consulting practicum. So if you have a major project that is a good fit for my expertise and for the level my students are at, which is undergraduate, and it can be a semester long that has tangible deliverables, something that the students can present, can create, and that would add value to organization, get in contact with me because I'm always recruiting. It's offered every spring. I designed the course. I've been teaching it for 5 years now, and I'm always looking for a great fit. And I tend to partner with startups and with entrepreneurs because that's my passion.
If I may, Susan, it's super competitive to get into your consulting course. So I know we sent you a ton of entrepreneurs, and it's not just, an email back and forth and you're in. I mean, you really vet these companies. So what can you talk? I don't know if you can talk about specifically a founder who's been in or the scope of a project, but it really is, I mean, significant amounts of work your students are doing.
Yes. And having taught this, I've also learned from failures. It's got to be a good fit. And the fit's got to be a level of commitment from the entrepreneur to come on campus and come in the classroom, to answer student emails, to provide the data, the information the students are seeking, to be able to communicate with young people, to really get down on their level and not be, condescending or taskmasters, but really be mentors. So if you're willing to be a mentor to a student, if you love mentoring young people and seeing what they can do, my students have done some phenomenal things. Another big request I get, a good chunk of businesses come because they have a product or a service that they are trying to target to young millennials or the generation after them, basically college students or young adults. And so they get an automatic group of 12, basically a focus group that's a semester long. And then those students can go and do focus groups, go do surveys, interview people, collect data, and validate an idea, a business model. And so that's another really great opportunity. There's so much in it for the client, but it is a commitment of time, and it's a commitment of really being present. And yes, I do vet them. So normally I have several meetings in the fall, so I'm kind of ramping up to find someone. So again, if you're interested, just a quick conversation via email or over the phone, and it could let me know if it's going to be a good fit pretty quickly. And then if it's a good fit, then we just lay out, what are you looking for? What value can my students add? And then we go from there.
And one of our economic development values is fighting brain drain. We want to keep graduates, in our area and not see them go off to other communities. We want to keep that great talent here. In your most recent consulting course, I think 3 job offers were extended to your students. Is that right? And then one sent on as a full-time intern or some. It's pretty significant.
That's right. And the students were employed during the semester, maybe on a 10 to 20 hour part-time basis, and then brought on after they graduate, after the course was over. So yes, that is significant. And it's absolutely critical that we fight this brain drain, whether students stay here and launch their own business or whether they go and work for startups, they go and stay local. And those connections are formulated while they're still in college, while they're still here. And another huge advantage to the consulting practicum, or even coming in and being a guest speaker for a day, is it's basically a free interview of 12 students for the consulting practicum over the course of a semester. Or if you show up in my entrepreneurship class, meet and greet, it's 25 students. So it's a way to basically interview, and entrepreneurs, and many of which are friends of mine, have told me, look, that one student that asked the really difficult questions of me, that was leaning forward in their seat, that's obviously very bright, I want that person. Mm-hmm. And so it's a great way to connect students with the business community and the entrepreneurial community.
Your first hires at a startup are so impactful. They can help you scale or sink the ship. So to know you can work for 12 to 15 weeks with like a walk-on tryout with this staff, and then decide if you want to carry them on forward or not, that's an incredible opportunity. Yeah. Kevin, Susan was bringing up adjunct teaching opportunities. Are there opportunities like that for folks at Western Carolina?
Absolutely. We love to bring in entrepreneurs and business leaders from the community to come in and teach, because again, we want our students to have super practical experiences. So yeah, I am glad to be the point of contact and connect any folks who are interested in giving us a hand to the right folks at WCU to help facilitate that for sure.
And you guys do online and in-person training.
We do
and
online.
that was prior to the pandemic. You guys have always had an online presence. How much has that grown in the last 18 months?
More than we can keep up with.
Yeah, sure.
For sure. And even like with the MBA program, it's a hybrid program. So that, because again, most of our students are also working. And so it helps them to be able to manage that time commitment of having some time in class and some time online. We think it's really important for people to have face-to-face instruction at WCU. A lot of programs have wanted to go completely online. And we do that with the entrepreneurship program. But at the same time, I say that, and the faculty for that are always glad to meet in person. I mean, they've even connected at different parts around the state with wherever the students may be. We want for folks to build their support network. That's part of what your classmates become in the long term. You may be 3 or 4, 5, 7 years down the line and be like, Jeff, he was that guy in my class who had that crazy thing to say, and I really need to understand what he was talking about. Let me see if I can find him on LinkedIn.
Yeah, the network's incredible. Susan, you have something to add? Yeah.
Back to your question, there's a few other ways that interested folks can get involved. One is we have an advisory board, and since I came here 7 years ago, we've tried to really diversify our board, not just in terms of, gender and race, but in terms of industry and sector. Instead of having all the, accounting firms, we have now entrepreneurs on our advisory board. There's also a formal management internship program where it's 4 credits and students get training on that. They get advised on that. They have a faculty of record. So it's not just you hiring an intern, but they have to develop content and apply what they've learned thus far in the program to the value they're adding for your organization. And the other way is through mentorship. We have a formal mentoring program with our advisory board. You don't have to be on the advisory board, but being a mentor to a young entrepreneurially minded student is also a great way to pay it forward and get to know folks.
I've had 2, actually, and I mentioned that, 2 interns from the management program. One, we had audit angel investment groups marketing materials to then build our own marketing materials. And this student was able to get access to angel groups I never could get, right? I manage the Asheville Angels, right? It's not like we're so competitive. We do kind of collaborate and circulate and syndicate all of our deals. I mean, there's not one we've done alone. Everything's been syndicated. There's been a little bit of territorialism when I contact even like a different city, right? To say, hey, can we see how you market? We're trying, so as a student, as an intern, and I mean, I remember one group in Louisiana gave them access to their member database and like their back end, their portal to see how they construct deals. And it was unbelievable. And that's just what we call playing the student card, right? And then the second intern we had the following summer did an audit of our microgrant recipients, winners, and tracking them. And we found some serious gaps in our programming that through surveys and follow-up, the initial awareness and visibility we gave startups who won was great, and the cash was great, but without a rigorous program to follow them through the deployment of capital, and most of those companies failed. So it was fascinating, and so it really helped so that intern from UNCA dramatically shaped the efficacy of our program.
Yes, and I know I've placed, there's been a couple of students that have worked for Mountain BizWorks as well. And so it's just great, whether maybe they don't necessarily want to start something right now as a current student, but they can go work for entrepreneur support organization and go intern, and for either an entrepreneurial firm or for someone that cares about entrepreneurship and is trying to grow the ecosystem.
Why is entrepreneurship so hot right now? Like, why is enrollment up across both your schools, both programs? And even though we talk about the graduate students being older, there's still millennials, right? Folks, 35, 40 and younger.
I think I have an idea about that. Well, first of all, it's a way to make a whole lot of money. So if you look at seriously, the generation of wealth is not from getting hired as a hired manager. It's from building your own enterprise or enterprises. So there's that. But I think that, well, it's not just that I think that. There's been research done on this. Why is entrepreneurship so prolific in colleges now, and why is entrepreneurship a path that students want to take? And part of it is actually not wanting to work for the man, right? They don't want to go work for someone in a hierarchical firm. Students, young people today are much more egalitarian. They want to be taken seriously. But what's interesting in the puzzle in entrepreneurial education is there's this huge gap between intention, reported intention, and actually launching. So actually millennials, who are the largest cohort now of people in the US, have the lowest rate of actually launching new businesses from former generations, Gen X or boomers. And so the question is why? I have a couple of theories about that, not to go into too much detail, but one is just debt load. I mean, it's cost of living, it's housing prices. Look at Asheville. So it's really hard to come up with that capital, but that's only part of the story. I think another reason is actually our educational system itself. I think we should have Montessori in college. I think that we should have, play centers and students being intrinsically motivated because they're curious. They want to play. They want to create. And in some respects, the way we do K through 12 with standardized testing and rubrics and teach to the test and multiple choice, that's not entrepreneurship. That's the opposite of entrepreneurship. They have to unlearn this algorithmic way of going through the world where there's no playbook in entrepreneurship. There's no playbook. And so getting them used to taking risks and exploring and building is really, I think, how we need to bring back that entrepreneurial mindset and capacity, so that we get actual students that actually launch a business and take the risks and make it happen.
There's so much to unpack there. That's awesome, Susan. But one of the key things is where you started that, like the path to creating wealth is not through employment. It's through building an enterprise.
Absolutely. And that's something called passive income. So if you look at the whole debate about tax rates, and the way you build wealth is through passive income, whether it's through real estate holdings or through stock options and stock gains and increases in stock prices and dividends. And that is how you get the world's billionaires. They are all founders of companies, or they're part of a founding family, or they're heirs. That's how major wealth is created, and not through employment. And employment, salaries, especially for the middle class, have just flattened out. Wages have really been stagnant. So that's not the way to build wealth. The way to build wealth is to start a new enterprise.
So if I want to build wealth, if I understand this right, I need to hand in my resignation immediately, walk out of this room, go across the hall, hand it in, and start a company.
No, because you'd be too badly missed. Everybody else go start something.
But no, it reflects the next point you made about debt, that even if I were to do that, I don't have the savings and net worth, may not, right, to start to acquire the resources that I would need to build the next great venture. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Kevan, what are you seeing? Why is entrepreneurship so hot across your programs?
I think we see it in the challenge for labor right now. Yeah, we've got folks who during the pandemic were pulled out of what had been their salary job or their hourly wage, and now they're thinking really hard, is that the work that I want to do? And I couldn't agree with Susan more that it's a lot about being the captain of your own ship and being able to be controlled. When you look at, say, the millennial generation, the number of economic situations, global economic crises that they've felt and experienced through their lifetime definitely sends a message of not being in control. It's interesting, I'm finding with Gen Z, and in college, we're only a couple years into the Gen Z group. This is a scrappy group. They're a scrappy group. They are definitely different generational than millennials and Xers before them. And I'm finding them just around town right now. I'm finding for folks that have been struggling for hiring people, they said the 18-year-olds are some of my absolute best employees right now.
We had a guy, Evans Prater from Mount Inspiration. If you followed him, right, he opened 2 stores in town, opened a 3rd in Boulder, Colorado, and he just made, I think, an 18 or 19-year-old college student at Boulder his GM of his Boulder shop. And he's gotten national press coverage over this, and he talks about her work ethic. That he's been in business for 6, 7, maybe 8 years, and he's never had employees as good as the college freshman he's getting. And he was on Fox Business with Neil Cavuto. And if you know Evans, that was not his comfort zone. It was an awesome interview. It was great. Juliana, I'm going to call you out as the cusp Gen Z millennial person on our team. Do you agree with what you're hearing from our guests?
Oh, absolutely. I think the climate has shifted drastically, especially just over the past year, and people don't want to go a traditional route and they're hungry.
And with that, I think it's so great that we have universities that are nurturing our millennials or Gen Zs that, we say Venture Asheville is the place to go to start a business, but it's really not. It's where you come to grow a business. We don't take companies in at the idea stage. We're not an incubator. Now, we have a mentorship program. We do financing. We have a lot of events that nurture and foster the ecosystem, but we rely on our university partners and with incredible folks like you two at those helms to help us, get go from people from idea or to even just awakening to the entrepreneurial mindset, which, as you both have alluded to in the words of my mentor, Mike Morris would say, there's nothing more freedom creating or independence driving in our lifetimes than entrepreneurship. So before we wrap up, you guys have anything you want to plug? I know, Susan, you have a new book coming out. And do you want to talk about some of your research on gender and entrepreneurship?
Sure, thank you for that. So this is my first book. It's co-authored, and it's with Cambridge University Press, and it's called Entrepreneurial Ecosystems, A Gender Perspective. And this is the capstone of 10 years of work on collecting data and doing analysis on the gender gap. So it's well known that venture capital dollars, only about 3% of venture capital dollars go to female-founded businesses. That means 97% of venture capital funds are going to male founders on average. Sometimes it goes up from year to year, but really it's around 3 to 5%. And so the question is why? So that's a big, hairy question. And the focus of the book is less on how do we fix women to be more like men, to pitch like men, and so forth. And it's how do we fix the decision makers, or how do we remove the implicit bias? How do we remove the barriers? And in that book, there are very tangible recommendations that are given to entrepreneur support organizations and those that support entrepreneurs to make the ecosystem more inclusive. And we also look at intersectionality. So we look at BIPOC and issues of race, which are very big and talked about now. But the gender gap has not gone away. And so this is really a resource for those that care about this gap. And a lot of people care about this gap. And I hope that you will sign up and order a copy.
I think we're going to have you back on as a guest with some of our female founders from Elevate who've raised venture capital to talk about their experience and your research, and that'd be a great follow-on episode.
Very cool.
Kevan, what's shaking at Western Carolina?
I would love to pitch for folks that are beginning in entrepreneurship or starting their business. One of the things we do is a pretty robust collection of continuing education and professional development programs that we host down at our instructional site at Biltmore Park, and we also do online Zoom. That it's things as fundamental as customer service to advanced HR and intro HR issues, and the list goes on. Because a lot of times that becomes the challenge for folks, for new entrepreneurs. They're building their frame, they've got the idea, but then they've got to get some real practical things like, I've got a staff of 6. How are we doing travel policies? What's our HR policy? What's our vacation time? How are we and we're helping folks to be able to do that work as well.
It's not just staffs of 6 that have HR problems. I made an inappropriate joke at work today. I ran up behind Max and I said, piggyback. And I didn't jump on him. So I thought that would be an HR problem. And then I realized, is that alone an HR problem? But I joked about him giving me a piggyback ride. And so I might find myself in one of those courses soon, Kevin. I look forward to it. Kevan Frazier, Dr. Susan Clark, thank you so much for spending time with us today on Talking Ship. We're talking about issues and topics in entrepreneurship. Juliana, anything to close us out? Any final thoughts from you? You didn't go to either of these schools. You are an Elon Muskrat. I don't know if that's the mascot, but it seems fitting. Is that what it is?
Oh, absolutely not. It is not an Elon Muskrat. Though we have a prominent business school at Elon University, the Phoenix. Though that's what we are. Rising
Very
from
good.
the ashes.
Very good. I hope you learned something today, Juliana.
I did.
I did too.
Very good conversation. Lots of good resources and lots of good tips.
All right, so we'll link us all this good stuff in our show notes. So thanks again for being on, and see you next time on Talking Ship.
Thanks for having us
Thanks
on.
for having me.